It's the sale of a lifetime, a one-off auction of Freddie Mercury's most treasured possessions.
For over 3 decades, Freddie Mercury's mansion remained untouched, a place of mystery, secrets, and hidden treasures from one of rock's greatest legends. But when his belongings were finally sold, strange questions arose. What was missing? What was hidden? And why did some believe the FBI got involved? From secret rooms and lost recordings to a missing final message, what was really inside Garden Lodge? Stay with us, because what was found will leave you absolutely shocked. Section 1. A mansion wrapped in mystery. Tucked away in one of London's most exclusive neighborhoods, hidden behind towering brick walls and a discreet green door, lies Garden Lodge, a mansion that has, for decades, captivated fans of Freddie Mercury. From the outside, it's an unassuming structure, quiet and elegant, blending into the affluence of Kensington. But on the inside, this house is a reflection of the most enigmatic, theatrical, and private rock star in history. Garden Lodge wasn't just a home, it was a sanctuary, a stage, and, some say, a vault of untold secrets. But could this legendary residence hold something even more shocking? What was found behind those walls after Mercury's death? And why did it take over 3 decades for the house to be sold? Originally built in 1907, Garden Lodge was designed by architect Ernest Marshall and first owned by artists Cecil Rhea and Constance Halford. Its history alone made it the perfect home for someone with Freddie Mercury's larger-than-life persona, an artist whose flamboyance and secrecy existed in equal measure. When Mercury bought Garden Lodge in 1980 for £500,000, an enormous sum at the time, he did so in cash, no questions asked. He was at the peak of his career with Queen, selling out stadiums, redefining music, and amassing a fortune. But this purchase wasn't just about luxury. Unlike many celebrities who flaunted their wealth with sprawling estates in the countryside, Mercury chose a walled-off urban mansion with one very specific quality: privacy. Inside, Mercury transformed the space into an extension of himself. He worked with designer Robin Moore-Eade to craft an aesthetic that blended opulence with intimacy. The house was filled with priceless antiques, oil paintings, and one-of-a-kind art pieces collected from around the world. French furniture from the 18th century stood beside bold Japanese prints. But beyond the luxury, there were personalized details that told the story of who Mercury really was behind closed doors. The dining room was painted a striking saffron yellow, a color Mercury personally chose. He said it reminded him of the sunshine of Zanzibar, his birthplace, and his childhood before fame found him. The drawing room was designed around his beloved black Yamaha piano, the same instrument on which he composed Bohemian Rhapsody. In this room, Mercury would play for hours, often in solitude, crafting melodies that would become immortal. One of the most breathtaking parts of Garden Lodge was the Japanese-style garden, which Mercury meticulously designed as a place of peace and reflection. Behind French doors lay a world of magnolia trees, ornamental water features, and delicate stone pathways. For years, rumors have circulated about hidden messages inside the mansion. Some believe that Mercury, knowing that his time was limited, may have left behind a final note, a letter, a stark contrast to the wild, chaotic life he lived as a performer. Mercury was fascinated by Japanese culture, a passion reflected in the art he collected, the architecture of the house, and even in the way he carefully arranged flowers himself every morning. Despite the extravagant design choices, Mercury wasn't interested in showing off Garden Lodge to the public. In fact, he was fiercely protective of it. It was one of the few places where he could truly escape. Unlike other rock stars who invited the press into their mansions, Mercury kept Garden Lodge strictly off limits. Few were ever allowed inside. It was a world only his closest circle could enter. Even after his death in 1991, that secrecy remained. His longtime confidant, Mary Austin, to whom he left the house and its contents, guarded it carefully. For over 3 decades, the property stood untouched, a frozen moment in time, filled with his belongings, his energy, and perhaps his secrets. Section 2. The shocking news that rocked the public. For over 3 decades, Garden Lodge remained untouched, a private vault of memories, artifacts, and secrets belonging to one of the most enigmatic figures in music history. Fans gathered outside its graffiti-covered green door, leaving messages, tributes, and whispers of speculation about what might still be hidden inside. But in 2024, everything changed. Mary Austin, the woman who had preserved Freddie Mercury's home since his passing, made a decision that sent shockwaves through the music world. She put Garden Lodge up for sale. Not only that, but she had already auctioned over 1,400 of Mercury's personal belongings the year before, unlocking a treasure trove of previously unseen items. But here's where things take a bizarre turn. As soon as news of the sale spread, theories began circulating online about what had really been found within those walls. Some claimed there were hidden letters, others speculated about never-before-heard Queen recordings, and a handful of voices suggested something even more sinister. Was the FBI involved? Could there have been classified documents, political secrets, or even something Mercury had hidden from the world? The sale of Garden Lodge was completely unexpected. For over 30 years, Mary Austin had treated the house as a private monument to Mercury, keeping his furniture, his art, even his half-finished notes exactly as they had been in 1991. While many assumed she would hold on to it forever, in 2023, she made her first move, auctioning off a staggering collection of Freddie Mercury's personal items at Sotheby's. These weren't just random possessions, they were intimate pieces of music history. Among the most notable sales was the Yamaha Baby grand piano, on which Mercury composed some of Queen's greatest hits, including Bohemian Rhapsody. It sold for over $2 million, an amount reflective of the sheer cultural weight of the instrument. Handwritten lyrics to Somebody to Love, Killer Queen, and We Are the Champions were also put up for sale, revealing raw, unedited versions of songs that shaped an entire generation. But while collectors scrambled to claim these items, others were fixated on something much stranger: the green door of Garden Lodge itself. That's right, the door, the very one that had been covered in messages from devoted fans for decades, was auctioned off for $521,000. Some might see this as a sentimental purchase, a piece of rock history immortalized by fans' handwritten notes, but others weren't so sure. Why would a door, just a door, fetch such an astronomical price? And more importantly, who bought it? As theories swirled, a darker question emerged. Was there something hidden inside the door? Could it have contained secret letters, lost recordings, or personal confessions Mercury never wanted to be made public? Some believed it could be more than just sentimental value driving the price. Perhaps whoever purchased it knew something the rest of the world didn't. The buyer's identity remains undisclosed, only fueling speculation. Meanwhile, another rumor was gaining momentum online, one that took this entire story to a whole new level. A handful of social media users began claiming that the FBI had taken an interest in the sale of Mercury's belongings, with some suggesting that authorities had confiscated certain items before they could be auctioned off. This, of course, raises an even bigger question. Why would the FBI care about a rock star's possessions? The most extreme theories claim that Mercury had, at some point, been involved in classified dealings or possessed sensitive information tied to world events. Others suggested that Queen's connections to powerful figures in the music and political industries might have led to certain documents being deliberately hidden. Given Mercury's relationships with celebrities, royals, and even political figures, was it possible that something of importance had been locked away in Garden Lodge all these years? On the surface, this might sound far-fetched, but it's not entirely without precedent. The FBI has been known to maintain files on major public figures, particularly those with influence. In the past, declassified documents have revealed investigations into musicians like John Lennon, Elvis Presley, and even Frank Sinatra. Their lives were scrutinized due to their political leanings, associations, and massive cultural impact. Could Mercury have been on a similar list? The truth, however, is far less dramatic, at least officially. There is no concrete evidence that the FBI was involved in any investigation related to Freddie Mercury or the sale of his belongings. In fact, most of these theories appear to have originated from speculation on online forums, rather than actual leaked documents or whistleblower reports. But that hasn't stopped people from asking, why did Mary Austin suddenly decide to sell everything now after 3 decades of silence? Was it really just about moving on? Or was there something bigger at play? Even without the FBI's involvement, there's no denying that the sudden unearthing of Mercury's belongings has led to some startling discoveries. Private letters were uncovered, notes Mercury had written to close friends, lovers, and collaborators, some of which hinted at his internal struggles in his final years. Unreleased photographs gave fans a rare glimpse into his personal life, showing candid moments inside Garden Lodge that had never been shared before. Even his iconic stage costumes, now meticulously cataloged and sold to collectors, were found preserved exactly as they had been decades ago, as if waiting for him to return. And yet, despite all of these revelations, there is still one lingering mystery. What, if anything, remains hidden? Not every item from Garden Lodge was sold. Some never made it to auction, sparking rumors that Austin may have held back certain personal documents, recordings, or artifacts. Could there be unreleased music still locked away? Could there be letters Mercury wrote but never sent? Or is there something that, even after all these years, is simply too controversial to reveal? Section 3. Freddie Mercury's secret life inside Garden Lodge. Inside Garden Lodge, Freddie Mercury lived 2 entirely separate lives. To the outside world, he was the ultimate rock star, flamboyant, larger than life, and impossible to ignore. He filled stadiums, commanded the stage like no one else, and partied with some of the most famous people in the world. But behind the high brick walls of his Kensington mansion, everything was different. Here, Mercury was not the performer, not the Queen frontman, but simply Freddie, a man who fiercely protected his privacy, even from those closest to him. His love for secrecy wasn't just about avoiding the press. Mercury had spent years crafting a persona of extravagance, a performer who seemed untouchable. But at Garden Lodge, he could be himself. He could sit at his piano in silence, sip champagne in his Japanese garden, and escape from the pressures of fame. Few people were ever invited inside. Even fewer knew what really went on beyond those doors. But Mercury's secrecy didn't mean his home was always quiet. In fact, some of the most legendary parties in rock and roll history took place inside Garden Lodge, events so wild that guests could barely recall what had happened the next morning. The most infamous of these was the Mad Hatter's Party in 1986. A lavish, no-expense-spared gathering. This wasn't just any party. It was an invitation to a world of pure fantasy, designed entirely by Mercury himself. Inspired by Alice in Wonderland, guests arrived in elaborate hats and eccentric costumes, greeted by candlelit halls, flowing rivers of champagne, and music so loud that neighbors reportedly called the police multiple times that night. But what made this party truly bizarre was how Mercury himself chose to experience it. While guests indulged in endless cocktails and wild dancing, Mercury was said to have spent part of the night watching them in secret. This is where the Minstrel Gallery mystery comes in, a story that has become one of the strangest legends of Garden Lodge. Above the main hall of the mansion was a hidden balcony, a space known as the Minstrel's Gallery. It was an architectural feature from another era, a place where musicians could once play for wealthy aristocrats without being seen. But Mercury repurposed it for something else entirely. According to some guests, he would often sneak away from his own parties, slipping up the stairs to watch his friends from above. Why? Was it amusement? Curiosity? A need to see the world without being part of it? Some believe it was a way for him to maintain control over his environment, to observe without being observed. Others suggest it was something more personal, a reminder that even in a house full of people, Mercury was often alone. But Garden Lodge wasn't just a party house. As Mercury's health began to decline, it became something else entirely. By 1989, Mercury knew his time was running out. Diagnosed with AIDS, he made a conscious decision to withdraw from public life, choosing to spend his final years in absolute privacy. Garden Lodge, once filled with music and celebration, became a fortress of solitude. The doors were closed to almost everyone. Only his closest circle of friends, his partner Jim Hutton, and a select few members of Queen were allowed inside. The few who did visit during those years described a house that felt frozen in time. Mercury's grand piano, the very one he had composed some of the greatest songs in rock history on, sat untouched. The Japanese garden, once a place of quiet reflection, became his only escape from the pain. He would sit for hours watching the water features, looking out at the trees, as if trying to hold on to every last moment of peace before it slipped away. But this period of isolation has also led to one of the biggest lingering mysteries of Garden Lodge. As Mercury withdrew from the world, he continued to write, record, and leave behind notes. Some believe he may have left unreleased recordings, personal letters, or messages intended to be discovered after his death. We know that he spent his final months finishing as many songs as he physically could, tracks that would later be released on Queen's album Made in Heaven. But what about the songs that were never completed? Could there still be unfinished lyrics hidden somewhere inside Garden Lodge, locked away in one of his many antique cabinets? And then there's the theory that Mercury left behind something even more personal. A final message, a letter, or a recording meant for his fans or for those closest to him. Could it have been deliberately hidden by Mary Austin, kept away from the world because it was too private, too painful? One thing is certain, Garden Lodge was more than just a house. It was the last sanctuary of a man who spent his life in the spotlight, only to retreat into darkness when the world became too much. Section 4. The Green Door and the Fan Pilgrimage. Did someone leave clues? It was never meant to be a shrine. Freddie Mercury never asked for Garden Lodge to become a place of pilgrimage, a sacred site where fans from all over the world would gather to leave their handwritten tributes. But that's exactly what happened. After his death in 1991, something strange occurred. Slowly, at first, fans began making their way to the mansion. They would stand in silence outside its high brick walls, looking up at the green door that Mercury himself had walked through every day. Then they started leaving notes, tiny messages of love, of loss, of admiration. But what began as a few handwritten letters soon turned into something much bigger. The Green Door of Garden Lodge became one of the most iconic locations in music history, covered in thousands upon thousands of words from devoted fans. The walls around it became a living diary, a space where strangers connected over their shared grief and love for the man who had changed their lives. Messages of heartbreak, song lyrics, artwork, all of it was there, etched into the door, covering every inch of its surface. Then, in 2023, something unbelievable happened. The Green Door, this legendary graffiti-covered symbol of Mercury's legacy, was removed and sold at auction for over $521,000. The door was more than just wood and paint. It had become a symbol of connection between Mercury and his fans. So why would it be auctioned off after all these years? And more importantly, who bought it? Who had $500,000 to spend on a door? And what did they know that the rest of the world didn't? For years, rumors have circulated about hidden messages inside the mansion. Some believe that Mercury, knowing that his time was limited, may have left behind a final note, a letter, or even an unseen set of lyrics tucked away in an unlikely place. And what better place than the very door that had become a bridge between him and his fans? The idea of Mercury leaving behind secret messages is not as far-fetched as it might seem. He was known for his theatrical personality, for doing things on his own terms. In his last months, he made sure that his final recordings were completed, that his affairs were in order, that Mary Austin knew exactly what to do with his ashes. If he had one last thing to say, one final gift to the people who had adored him, wouldn't he have found a way to make sure it was discovered? The sale of the door reignited an entire wave of speculation. about whether Mercury had left behind a final message that had yet to be found. And the most suspicious part? The buyer of the door has chosen to remain anonymous. Some believe that whoever bought the door knew something no one else did, that they had inside knowledge about a hidden message, a letter, or something Mercury had left behind. Others suggest that the buyer could be someone from Mercury's inner circle, someone determined to keep a final secret hidden forever. This isn't the first time fans have speculated about clues hidden in Garden Lodge. Over the years, several people have attempted to sneak inside, some successfully, others not so much. One of the most famous incidents happened in the late 1990s, when a small group of fans managed to scale the walls of the mansion and catch a glimpse inside. What they saw only added to the legend of Garden Lodge. They described rooms that seemed untouched, as if Mercury had just stepped out for a moment and would be back any second. His grand piano, his velvet-lined chairs, even half-drunk bottles of champagne were said to be exactly where they had been left before he passed away. Another story comes from a fan who claims to have entered Garden Lodge under mysterious circumstances. According to their account, the house was filled with energy, as if Mercury's presence still lingered in the air. But they also described locked doors, rooms they were not allowed to enter, rooms where perhaps something had been hidden away for decades. So what does all of this mean? One possibility is that the sale of the door was purely sentimental, that the buyer simply wanted a piece of history, a relic of Mercury's life, nothing more. But the secrecy surrounding the sale, the mystery of who bought it, and the long-standing rumors about unseen notes, final messages, and undiscovered documents have kept fans wondering. Section 5. Freddie Mercury's final wish. What happened to his ashes? Freddie Mercury's final wishes were as secretive as his private life, and even in death, he ensured that no one, not even his closest friends, would ever truly know everything. When he passed away in 1991, the world mourned the loss of one of the greatest voices in music history. Fans filled the streets, tribute concerts were organized, and outside Garden Lodge, thousands gathered to pay their respects. But behind the closed doors of the mansion, something far more private was taking place. A funeral so secretive that even now, over 3 decades later, many questions remain unanswered. The funeral itself was not the grand spectacle some expected. Mercury had been a man of excess, of wild parties and theatrical performances. But when it came to his final goodbye, he wanted none of that. His funeral was a small, quiet ceremony, attended by only 35 people, a gathering so exclusive that many of his closest colleagues and industry friends weren't invited. Even those who were present found the ceremony unlike any funeral they had ever attended. It was conducted by a Zoroastrian priest, following the religious traditions of Mercury's childhood. But beyond that, very little was known. There were no cameras, no reporters, no public statements from the family. Then came the greatest mystery of all, Mercury's ashes. Unlike many celebrities whose final resting places are publicly marked with grand memorials, Freddie Mercury ensured that no one would ever find his remains. Before he died, he gave one of his most trusted friends, Mary Austin, a final instruction: to take his ashes and scatter them in a place that no one would ever discover. Even members of Queen, Brian May, Roger Taylor, and John Deacon, were never told where Mercury's ashes ended up. Austin never spoke about it, never hinted at a location, never left any clues. It was a secret between her and Freddie, one that she has carried for over 30 years. But this silence has only led to more speculation. For years, rumors circulated that Mercury's ashes had remained inside Garden Lodge long after his funeral. Some believe that Austin, unable to part with them right away, kept them hidden somewhere inside the mansion, in a private room, in a locked drawer, perhaps even in one of Mercury's beloved antique cabinets. It wasn't until 2 years after his death that Austin was seen leaving Garden Lodge with a small, discreet urn. She never confirmed if it contained Mercury's ashes, but many believe this was the moment she finally fulfilled his last wish. But where did she take them? Some believe that Mercury's ashes were scattered in Lake Geneva, Switzerland, near his beloved Montreux home, where he spent some of the happiest years of his life. Others think he may have been laid to rest in Zanzibar, where he was born. Some even suggest that his ashes were placed in Kensal Green Cemetery in London, hidden beneath a false name. One of the strangest theories emerged in 2013 when an anonymous plaque appeared at Kensal Green Cemetery. It read, "In loving memory of Farouk Bulsara, pour être toujours près de toi avec tout mon amour." The phrase translates to be always close to you with all my love. But within weeks of its discovery, the plaque vanished without a trace. To this day, no one knows who put it there or who removed it. Was it a real tribute, a message left by Mary Austin, or just an elaborate hoax? And then there's another theory, one that is far more unsettling. What if something of Mercury still remains inside Garden Lodge? Some believe that Mercury left behind a final letter, possibly hidden somewhere inside the house, a note explaining why he wanted his ashes to be a secret, or even revealing what he really thought about his final days. Others speculate that his ashes were never moved at all, that they remained hidden within Garden Lodge long after Austin's supposed trip to scatter them. Section 7. The FBI, Conspiracies, and Urban Legends. What's the truth? For years, rumors about Freddie Mercury's mansion have refused to die. Speculation has ranged from the bizarre to the outright unbelievable. But one particular theory has taken on a life of its own. Was the FBI ever involved in an investigation related to Freddie Mercury's belongings? It sounds like something out of a conspiracy thriller, but some corners of the internet insist that Mercury's estate contained something so shocking, so politically sensitive, that authorities stepped in to seize it. Others claim that hidden Queen recordings, classified documents, or personal letters tied to powerful figures were buried inside Garden Lodge. But is there any truth to this? Or is it just another urban legend? The speculation started shortly after 2023, when Mary Austin began auctioning off Mercury's belongings. Over 1,400 items went up for sale, from his handwritten lyrics to his famous stage costumes. The public got an intimate look at his personal notes, rare artwork, and even his beloved Yamaha grand piano. But some fans noticed something strange. Certain categories of items seemed to be missing. There were no detailed personal journals, no private letters revealing his thoughts on his final days, no extensive handwritten correspondences with other celebrities. Despite Mercury's close friendships with David Bowie, Elton John, and even Princess Diana, some immediately speculated that these missing items weren't just left out of the auction, but actively removed by someone who didn't want them to be seen. This is where the FBI theory comes into play. Some conspiracy theorists claim that certain documents or recordings found inside Garden Lodge were so sensitive that authorities intervened before they could be made public. One of the wilder theories suggests that Mercury had been in possession of classified political letters, documents that for some reason needed to be kept out of public hands. There is, of course, absolutely no evidence that this is true. The FBI does keep files on certain celebrities. John Lennon, for example, was monitored due to his anti-war activism, but there has never been any indication that Mercury was of political interest to intelligence agencies. He was a musician, not a government figure, a rock star, not a political operative. So why do these theories persist? Much of it comes down to Mercury's personality itself. He was a man who valued secrecy, who lived in a private world behind Garden Lodge's towering walls. Fans have always felt that there was more to his life than what the public saw, and that sense of mystery has fueled endless speculation. His connections to influential figures also add to the intrigue. Mercury's friendship with Princess Diana is well documented, and the two even had a now-famous night out disguised in drag to avoid the paparazzi. Some theorists wonder, could their friendship have involved something more than just casual outings? Could Mercury have received private letters from the royal family, documents that might have needed to be buried forever? The idea of hidden Queen recordings is another long-standing rumor. Many artists leave behind unfinished songs, demo tapes, and alternative versions of famous tracks. With Mercury's perfectionist tendencies, it wouldn't be surprising if there were hours of unheard music locked away somewhere. But would those recordings really be important enough to attract government attention? The most likely explanation is far simpler. Certain aspects of Mercury's private life were never meant to be public, and Mary Austin ensured they remained that way. The fact that so many personal letters and recordings were missing from the auction doesn't necessarily mean they were seized. It could simply mean that Austin chose to keep them, destroy them, or hand them over to trusted friends instead. For now, the truth remains elusive. There is no FBI file on Freddie Mercury, no government conspiracy tied to his estate, but that doesn't mean there aren't secrets still waiting to be uncovered. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Click the next video for more exciting content.